Hi everyone, I'm Julianne Now, and you're listening to the Lady Now Show, where I feature conscious conversations about health, life, love, cannabis, yoga, spirituality, women's empowerment, and so much more. I believe a holistic life starts from the inside and is reflected like a movie projector out into your outside world. This is also a space where it's like having your best friend answer all your questions while sharing her best insights all in one. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you want more free content, mentoring options, or just to reach out and say hi, head to my website at ladynow.com.
Sounds good.
All right. So good morning, Sarah. Thank you for joining me. What time is it
Thanks
there?
for having me. It is 9 a.m.
Awesome. Describe to me what Minnesota is like right now so I can get a visual. I've never been there.
You've never been? Well, for one thing, I had a call center job for like a year or two, and someone asked if I was Canadian. So we do sound pretty similar to Canadians.
You
we're
do,
pretty nice
actually.
here in Minnesota. I know. There's like a few vowels that we say differently, but besides that, I could probably totally fit in as a Canadian. But right now, it's nice now. It's 57 and sunny.
Awesome.
There's the snowstorm that we did have, which we got like almost, I don't even know if we got a foot of snow, but it's melted now. And so now it's feeling like spring outside. I'm in the suburbs, so I'm about probably like on a good day 45 minutes from the city, Minneapolis.
Awesome.
So I have some yard space. It's very nice.
Oh, the yard space is needed.
Yes, I have a pond in the backyard. It's very nice. Very nice. But it's coming the season where everyone just wants to be outside. We all hibernate in the winter.
Oh, yeah, we do here too.
So it's a very similar concept. Like now we're all like,
meeting
the neighbors. Yes,
ready for a barbecue.
We are ready for a barbecue, except my husband tried to grill yesterday, and so the grill wasn't working. So we need to get that fixed now that it's starting to be nice and thaw.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely it's very similar for sure. So I was so happy to connect with you over conversations about how amazing Reiki is. And I thought we'd start with you just describing your Reiki experience. Like, how did Reiki enter your life? And you mentioned David. So that's your Reiki teacher or the Reiki practitioner you go to?
So he's a practitioner. So I haven't learned how to do it per se, but he is he's my healer. So part of like my mom's purpose on this earth is to be like a healer.
Yes.
And so I give the credit to her. So she was really into yoga and would go to the YMCA and like loved this one instructor, and her name is Marianne, and her and David worked together and opened a few Green Lotus yoga studios in Minnesota, like wellness centers. And so he also does massage, and that's first how my mom heard about him. And so, she just, from the angels, was like feeling right to nudge me towards that direction. Like, she brought me to my first session. I did it. It was probably like an hour away from home. So she drove just because she didn't know if I'd end up really tired or anything.
Yeah.
But now I go see him, and it's been, almost 8 years that I've seen him. And he's also a medium. So he's also very connected to my guides. And the more him and I have gotten to know each other, like we just get to that spot like right away. Like we don't know each other outside of our sessions together. And now my mom has finally started to go see him too for individual sessions. yeah, just
Nice. So what first like made you seek kind of that alternative way of healing?
right. So I I struggled in college with anxiety and depression, and I did see therapists and medication and that route for sure. Um, and my mom just felt strongly into like the, Eastern medicine, if you will. Like, let's try some
Yes.
alternatives. And I've learned a ton. I didn't know a whole lot. I didn't know much about chakras or anything like that when I first saw David. A lot of it's been like research I've done after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of learned about it because, yeah, I've been doing it for, I think I first saw him maybe 8 years ago. So,
And to describe to anyone who's never had a Reiki session, and like I know as a Reiki practitioner and teacher myself, that like the way I would go about doing a Reiki treatment may be different than someone else. What is your experience like? Like, do you go in, lay down, there's music? Is there no music? Do they touch your
yeah,
head or not? Kind of describing that experience for anyone that maybe has never had
sure.
treatment.
Right. So with David, we usually we'd have a seat when I first got there and kind of discuss, well, we usually briefly like catch up, and he we come up with the intention for the
Mm-hmm.
setting, essentially, is what we do. So before we do that, the fun stuff, we set the intention, and he usually will help me with that because sometimes I don't know how to word it as well
Yeah.
as he does. He's good. He's a good guide. So then I would get on the table, his massage table, and he usually will play like quieter music. We talk a lot throughout the session, so it's nothing too loud, but usually some Zen music, and he does put his hands on me because I am okay with that. He will
Mm-hmm.
also do it with whatever people are comfortable with.
Yep.
But yeah, so I usually just lay on the bed. I'm always cold, so I have a blanket,
Me too.
and so yeah, he hops in his chair, and
Mm-hmm. So what,
then the fun starts.
yeah, what's it like for you? Because some people tell me that they feel warm feeling or static feeling, or their temperature drops or goes up, like they feel different things. Sometimes they even see images as well. So what do you feel and or see at different times? What is it like
Well,
as you're receiving?
so the last two I saw him, so I saw him in February, and then I saw him again like in the fall, I believe. I noticed when he was, um, I don't know if he was over my he was like over my eyes, my face, and my eyes were closed, and I started seeing purple,
Oh,
and I was like, this is weird. So I closed my eyes. I'm like, well, I still see it. Well, I still see it. And like, I didn't think too much about it. Like I told my husband, I'm like, well, that was kind of a neat thing. And then, well, it happened the second when I just saw him again in February. And so I did some research, and I was like, I think this might be related to a third eye thing.
yes.
So that's pretty much the only thing I really see is my eyes are closed. I definitely see the purple. And since then, I've seen more colors and geometric shapes and stuff like that. When I'm not in Reiki, I'm just at home.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm meditating and stuff like that. So like that's a newer thing for me that I'm guessing is from doing the Reiki.
Totally.
So that's definitely like opened that realm for me. But as for like feelings, I do kind of feel like, especially like the more I'm cleared out, like my mom and I both noticed like the tingly sensation like in our feet. And David said that was like his white light, like going through us. And so I feel more of like the vessel aspect of myself
Yeah.
now. Like I feel like things can flow through in a strange way.
That's a great way of describing it. Have you ever looked up the violet flame, like Saint Germain and the violet flame? I feel like that could be what you're seeing.
I'm gonna write this down. Violet
Yeah.
and the Germain.
Yes,
Good.
Saint
Thank you.
Germain.
Because I've been trying to kind of figure out like, okay,
Yeah,
what is
the
this?
violet
And
flame.
that's been kind of my journey in life to put together some puzzle pieces of what I'm seeing and hearing.
Yeah, I definitely find like even being the practitioner, like my mediumship and intuition and readings are like spot on now. Whereas before, like I could do like chunks here and there, but the more I do Reiki and the readings, like the more it just naturally flows. And as someone to receiving the treatment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was totally feeling this when you were thinking that and saying that. It's just like so.
Oh, I've definitely had a lot of those, like, we're on the same page, like, words in our mouths, and like, it's crazy. Like, it's really, and David and I only speak when I go to his, we schedule and then I go see him. So he really doesn't know me that well. But now, even like this fall when I came, I sat down and he's like, I see you. Like, he almost got into I wouldn't say like the session sooner, but like he was able to like connect with me
Yes.
so much faster than he usually could. And I feel like over the course of the years, like he's gotten so much better with me. And I don't know, he's seen a lot of other people, obviously. And my mom got one of her coworkers to go see him regularly. But I think like the more you connect with someone in that way, it really grows the connection. Like he just, like, as soon as I sat down, he's like, I see you, like, where have you been? And so for that instance was, we tend to put a mask on ourselves, from a
Yes.
very, very young age. He was telling me it was probably like elementary school when I first felt the need to be someone else for someone else. And so to have someone like David in my life to really validate and confirm, like, we see you, all this hard work you're doing on like being your authentic self and like working through your pain and healing, to have someone that doesn't know me on a day-to-day basis be like, hey, I see you, I know you, like you're doing a great
validating
job.
you.
So validated. Like he was like, I don't want to be, I don't know how to put this, but you're a real human now. And I was like, and I started crying, and I was like, that's like the most nice thing you've ever said to me, because and he wasn't quite sure. And I think that's part of his struggle sometimes, is like wanting to filter what comes out of our mouths. And I know this just from my day-to-day basis too, where it's like sometimes like they need to hear things the way that it's coming to you, even though you might think it's not nice. But like for me, that was one of the nicest things he ever said, was confirming that I am a real person, and that I'm not hiding behind a mask anymore, So he's really helped me in that sense, in the Reiki sense, like who I am and feel like empowered being who I am, and that like this work is paying off.
Yes. So I really liked in your email when you touched on how during a session he told you that you were manipulative and you were shocked. So can we talk about that a little bit? Because I'm like, oh my God, hearing that would definitely be like, what?
Funny. Like I consider myself like a
way.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely one of those things where he felt compelled to like edit what he said. And I'm like, just say it. Like, me, like, just say it. We'll figure it out together type of thing.
Yes.
But this was a few years ago, so I wasn't at like an awareness point. So I was really taken aback. He was like, trying to, he's like, you're really manipulative. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't.
Ouch.
Like, I was a psychology major. Like, I used to want to be a therapist. Like, I would think I'm like a pretty like considerate human being. But then he goes, and it took a minute because he kind of had to wrestle with the message, and kind of try to figure out what everyone was trying to say to him. And he was like, you tend to tell people what they want to hear. And like, I was like, oh, well, you caught me. Yes, I do. And like, I didn't understand that was a manipulative behavior. I mean, it's a learned behavior and whatever. I just thought it was being nice to tell people like, yes, you are great. You're wonderful. Everything will be okay. And really, it's just not doing a service to really anyone. And that, I mean, that in of itself, talking to him about telling people the things that they want to hear and feeling the need. I'm very like aware of like the energy and the vibe, the vibrations of, gatherings and stuff like that. And he's given me permission to like not feel like responsible for the energy in the space and for other people's emotions, boundaries and stuff like that.
Yes. People
But the
pleasing is a big
manipulation
one
thing,
for everyone.
very big
And
one.
myself, I'm always learning.
Absolutely. And so it's nice to work with someone to pull that out. And so like I would go, so I also have like a therapist. So then the things that that would come up with David, like working on my boundaries and my friendships. I mean, all of my friendships have been severely affected, mostly in positive ways. But I have friends that, I mean, people tend to come to me anyway for things, and now they don't get the person that will just say what they want to hear. So it has brought some frustration with some people that they're like, well, I knew you would just be that person that like, why can't you just say what it is that I want to hear? And I'm like, because I'm not that person anymore. I mean, I never was that person. It was just a facade, type of thing. Like, it's just, I want to be a real, more authentic person. And how can I do that if I'm not being real and authentic with my loved ones? They're people that I'm really close to, that it ends up benefiting them. If I can be more honest, it benefits me. And I mean, it's like a little nugget, and then you kind of spread it and it just ripple effects.
Totally.
In such a positive way.
So what have you also found that Reiki has done for you? Like, it's helped your relationships, it's helped your personal growth. Like, what about like health-wise or career-wise or just following your heart-wise? Like, what are some other things that really surprised you that it helped you with, that you were like, wow, I didn't even expect to also have this?
Right. Oh, I mean, it's been life-changing. I finally convinced my husband to go see it, and it's to go see David. And it's one of those things, like, it's even like just immediately, like that day, I'll feel so much like, yeah, I'll be tired and it, and it was an experience, but I'll feel lighter. Which feeling lighter in and of itself gives you more energy, in my opinion. If I feel light, I'm gonna feel like I can, so it just, and I tend to be someone that buries things, and that's something Dave and I have talked about. And so that's something I brought to therapy, where it was like, hey, like, I have a huge habit of burying emotions. Like, I need to figure out how to release and let go them. And so therapy and Reiki are really helping me like get to that place of letting go of a lot of the things. And just like realizing the negative behavior patterns and stuff like that, because Dave last time, how like people really are like onions, like we have layers, and as we peel back more layers, more stuff comes up. Like, for instance, I lost an aunt about 11 years ago unexpectedly. She had a heart attack. She was 42.
Wow.
Really, yeah, it was a genetic like heart attack. She was like overall pretty a healthy human being, so we weren't expecting that at all. She had 2 younger children, and it was really traumatic. And I didn't realize how angry I was at her for leaving. And I know that's not it's not rational to be,
but it's a real feeling
for leaving, but it's a real feeling. And so that was able to come up in one of my sessions this past year. And it's like I couldn't get to that without getting to some of the other things. So we're kind of like a Pandora's box.
Yes,
and
opening up all the things.
Opening up all of the things, which can be very overwhelming, but trusting that you have like a good support system to like work through that. Like, my mom is very into it, and we're very spiritual people. So like I can always talk to my mom about everything in the session. And that was great because she will come to me as well with things that have come up in her session. And it's been a really fun way to connect with my mom on a different level. But I mean, positively affected me in like every aspect of my life. Because I've learned a lot about myself. Like he'll just pick up on little facts about me
Mm-hmm.
that just kind of brings some more clarity. Um, like you have a thing for the underdog.
Yeah, that's something that
Do I?
I find people don't realize, like when you go to a Reiki session, that like that person is probably going to give you some feedback that's going to be super helpful. Like that's so with mine. I'm like, I do like the full reading at the end because I'm like, so much is coming up that you just need to know. And it's really nice to be the receiver as the person getting the Reiki, whereas I'm the one that like, I just did the session on you. And now I'm also telling you kind of like what you need to hear without you even telling me what you needed to hear, what you wanted to know.
Right.
Like this great relationship in a great way. Like you're, definitely not the first person that I've heard that someone's like, it healed the relationship with my mom. And like, I don't even know why, but it was just like, I felt differently about her and the things that had happened. And maybe we're still not BFF, but there's this healing there that I can be like, whew, I can like find forgiveness and drop the ball a little bit and know that things are safe and it's okay.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like
Absolutely.
huge healing in all areas.
Generational healing. I mean,
Yeah.
my mom and I are pretty close, but she was not with her parents. And so a lot of, she's done some therapy and some Reiki healing, and just also being able to connect with our guides and our loved ones on the other side. I mean, like her grandfather came through the other, and she went last month. She went in February as well. And she really needs to heal that connection on that side of the family. And so like her and I together, like we really want, like I have a 2-year-old, and like my dad was an alcoholic until I was 8. My mom's mom was an alcoholic until she was 18. And whenever my mom goes to these sessions, whenever I go to these sessions, like we're healing for our future generations too, because I feel like my daughter will take on anything that I haven't dealt with.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And my mom is seen, and my mom still, and she feels a lot of guilt, with everything, but it's made us who we are. And I think everything that has happened in our lives, I think we've chosen it. There's purpose for it all. We've become the people that we were supposed to be. Like, yes, it was awful that my mom grew up, the way that she did, but that made her an even more involved mom with me. And then I've seen my mom do that, and then I've been able to do that with my daughter. And so for my daughter to like start at such a young age, having like parents that are like aware and trying to work through their stuff, I think it would be very beneficial. So I can't wait for her to be able to start doing Reiki. Which I was going to ask, what's the youngest age you've done like a Reiki on?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, like, I'm with after schoolers in the afternoon doing an after school program for a little bit because I used to be an ECE. And one of the children are coming for Reiki tomorrow. And she's like 8. So, but I've also done it on like smaller kids. Like, say if I'm like already kind of looking after them, I'll do a little Reiki on them, like as they're playing, or ones that are like just before they're going to sleep, because their attention span is only going to last so long when they're so little. So like kind of getting it in when they're already kind of settled or needing that settling, like giving the Reiki then, and then they're so much more aligned and in tune than we are. So they only need a few minutes. Same as like animals, like you can give Reiki to a dog and then it'll walk away because it's just like, well, I'm done receiving now. Like I didn't get an hour session like you needed. Like
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So children totally benefit from that as well. Any like final words of wisdom or things that you would like people to know that may be skeptical about Reiki or are wanting to try it but are on the fence about it? Like any words you'd like to share with them?
Well, I mean, if you were like me 8+ years ago, like I was getting out of a bad relationship, I was willing to try just about like anything
Yes.
that seemed relatively safe, at that point to get better, to be able to, function and work and have good relationships with people. And so there's a type of like, there's a point where you just have to surrender to it
Oh, I
and
love
just
that word.
surrender
Yes.
and just, I just kind of surrendered to it and the other side. And, like my husband has a more Christian religious background than I do. And so he was a little bit more skeptical because a lot of people don't really know what it is. And they think, it could be bad and
Yes.
unbecoming of a Christian human being. But what I find is like it can be both. Like you can be Christian and do Reiki, and like whether or not you choose to believe in the chakras, like I know that they're there. I can
Yes.
feel them, and it was like when I was in not in elementary school, probably like high school. The house I grew up in was haunted. Like there were ghosts. We heard footsteps and names. And I think I might be a little clairaudient too. So I don't know what all I heard compared to my sister. Cause my
Yes.
sister was like pretty like, what? There are ghosts. And I'm like, where have you been? We've been here for 20 years. And it's been like my parents bought the house from my dad's parents. So like we had like
Okay.
2 generations in this house. My neighbor, I think it was her mom and dad that were hanging out with us. But people were like, oh, well, we don't believe in ghosts. They don't,
Oh,
it's not Christian. And I'm like, well, like, okay, you cannot believe in it, but like I've
but they're
seen it.
there.
I've heard it. So
No way.
that's like saying that like there is no grass. Like, okay, well, yes, there is grass. There's grass right outside. I can see with my eyes. So that's one of those things with the chakras and like the power of Reiki. Like I know it works, and I can see how easy it would be to be discouraged after a session or two, because it depends on who you see, and how long they've been doing it, how good they are at deciphering things, or just the connection that you have. I think that really affects it. And also what I do want to say is during the session, when things come up, I know my husband really struggled with this. Like the person doing it likes the validation of, does this ring true to you? Like for instance, his first session, David goes, something about like having a hard time of letting things go and struggling with death. And he's like, well, I don't think so. No. And here I'm sitting like, yes, you do. Like those are your biggest issues. So like if this person who's a complete stranger, and you trust them at least, like I feel like I would trust the things that you would say to me during a session, like just like give them the benefit of the doubt that it's probably there's probably a bit of truth to it.
It's
Because
like, no, I'm not. You're like, yeah, you do.
There's a person in your life that you're, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can. So it does require. And I know like self-awareness is a journey, and I was very non-self-aware like 15 years ago, 10 years. Like I understand, but for me it was really funny. The things that I thought were super obvious to me that he had like no idea for. So I think that's like another added benefit is like you go for one thing and you leave with all these other little they're like little puzzle pieces, like go add this to my puzzle. Now I'm going to go and research more things about, and explore and like build on this knowledge. But awareness.
Yes.
Awareness is nice. Just the things that, at least David tells me, he's like, these are all things that I'm not telling you things that you don't
like your soul
already
knows.
know. Your soul knows. And I think things resonate with you.
Yeah, it's like, yep, whoa.
You have like the light bulb click moment where you're just like, aha, yes, we are on the right track. Because then that also, I think, helps you, the person doing the session is if you like, the more you can kind of like participate and like, oh, well, yes, I do. You were definitely on the
Yeah.
right track. I do have a thing, you know, about balance and justice. And like, you know, he'd be like talking about roses. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had like this phase for a little bit where I just kept reminding myself to stop and smell the roses, like trying to remind myself to be present.
It's funny that you say that
like
because I
the side
just
effect.
made a post yesterday on my media of me smelling roses, and I said, "Stop and smell the roses."
That is so funny. So the more I go down this journey with David and like my spirituality, like the more synchronicities and things like that happen.
Yes.
Like so much. I've reconnected with a couple of people I was friends with like 10, 15 years ago. And
Yes.
just, you know, as we're catching up, we have these like weird little synchronicity things, or just like, oh my God, that happened to me too. And it's just funny how people are brought in and out of your life and stuff like that.
Yes. Totally.
The roses.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time and speaking with me and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
Anytime.
I could talk forever about Reiki, and I
Mhm.
just feel like it's not talked about enough. Like people just think it's like a woo-woo thing, and it's like, no, like so much happens. Like, but it's so gentle
Right.
too. It's so beautiful.
It's very gentle. It's very relaxing. I've always felt amazing when I leave, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do this all the time.
Yes, like tomorrow.
All the time. Tomorrow I'll be here, because that you know, you get it's a nice feeling, and it's like a natural high. You don't need it. It's just white light and feeling loved, and you know, it's just a reminder that we're not alone. I mean, that's also part of like my spiritual journey, is losing people via death. And it's to like come to terms with that. Like Reiki has also helped me a lot with that, just because then it gives me an opportunity to connect, and just knowing that there's more than what we just see with our two eyes.
Yes. That is a great way to end the episode. There is more than we see with our two eyes. Yes. It's the third eye.
It's the third eye.
The other one.
Exactly. And you know, more and more, you know, like people used to think like meditation was like woo woo. And guess what? There's like research being like, hey guys, look, it really is good. It's good for your physiology and your biology and all of these things. And so like the more people are like, hey, this isn't just some silly thing, I think the more and more people will open up to the possibility of it, or at least, you know, like be more accepting of it. Like, cool. So I mean, it's an amazing experience. So I think everyone should give it a try at least once. And if it's really not your thing, then that's totally fine. But like, I don't think you don't lose anything.
No, I'm so glad that you found like a practitioner you resonate with, and that it's just helped you so much in so many ways. It's amazing. Thank you so much for your time and speaking with me today. And I'm glad that winter's almost over for both of us.
It is. It is.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Just rain in the forecast still.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.